So first of all, I think people get confused. Like people say, especially authors, should I be promoting my book or should I be promoting my brand, my personal brand? And we have struggled with this with our company. Do we promote just the company? Should we be promoting us? One thing I want to tell you is
Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is April Cox here with you from Self Publishing Made Simple, and I have a special guest speaker today. The topic is Beyond the Book, building a personal brand that attracts readers, agents, and opportunities. My friend Melanie Johnson from Elite Online Publishing is someone I lean on when it comes to branding and marketing. She is an expert in that field. So I'm very happy to have her talk to us about this important topic. All right. So why don't you give us the full introduction of your background, Melanie, before you go ahead and jump in?
so my background is TV. I started as a news anchor way back when. And before that, I was Miss Michigan. So that was my start into media. Then my former husband and I got a license for a TV station. Together, we built a TV station here in Houston, Texas, when TV actually meant something. So we're going to talk about that. In my opinion, TV is really dead. Radio is dead. Everything is on the internet. You can even see that with the election. All the push was through podcast and social media and online entertainment. But my background was that. So developed TV shows, morning shows, anchored, sold advertising, marketed the TV station. So really had a great experience learning media from the ground up. When I stopped doing that, I wanted to learn about digital media. Everyone said, Melanie, why don't you stay in television? I had gotten divorced and I said, I just think TV is dying. And that was in 2008. So it's taken a long, slow death to get there. And in the meantime, I always had an entrepreneurial spirit starting those TV stations. I had two houses that my husband put into foreclosure because of bankruptcy, and no one knew what Airbnb was at the time, but I turned them into rentals. VRBO had just come out, and I made six figures renting those houses, and that's how I survived his bankruptcy. In the meantime, been an entrepreneur, done some real estate development, still do some of that, and fell into publishing, and I've loved it. I've been doing it for 10 years, and I'm with Jen Foster, who's out in Salt Lake City, Utah. We were both single moms, and this little side hustle event turned into our main business. We're proud to say we've done it for 10 years, and we've made all of our authors bestsellers. Now we do book awards for authors and full media and marketing for authors as well. So that's a little bit about my background.
Awesome. So tell us about the topic and feel free to take the baton from here, and I will let you drive the session for today.
All right. Let's get started. I see some people talking about brand colors, website, and all of that sort of thing. So let's dive into what I think a brand is. First of all, I think people get confused. Like people say, especially authors, should I be promoting my book or should I be promoting my personal brand? And we have struggled with this with our company. Do we promote just the company? Should we be promoting us? One thing I want to tell you is you should always promote your personal brand. Traditional publishers never promote the author. They always promote the book because an author can jump ship and go somewhere else for more money. They don't want to promote the author because then the author is going to be more popular. Someone else might get them, or they're going to ask for more money. So you want to grow your personal brand. Nobody can ever take that away from you. You will always have it. And if you shift and use it for another business, another job, another endeavor, you will always have that brand and that following. It's going to stay with you all the time. And I think the important part about your brand is storytelling. So remember to tell your authentic story. People want to know who you are and your background and how that relates to being an author. Like I just told you my backstory, and people are like, oh man, Melanie, you just seem like you've had this wonderful, perfect life. But no, I've had a lot of ups and downs and pitfalls. And then you become more relatable because no one's had this even keel thing. They want to know your journey, even if it's just your author journey about how you wrote the book. Maybe you struggled. Oh my gosh, I started my book 3 years ago and I'm still not done. And I'm trying to get it done. And then I finally got it done. They want to know that journey you're going through. And Sometimes it's scary to tell your own personal story and to say things that you failed, or maybe you published a book and it didn't do anything and you're embarrassed, but that's okay because we've all done things that haven't worked and failed. And I'm really an advocate. I was just listening to Tony Robbins today and he reminded me every challenge is an opportunity. Every problem is an opportunity to correct, course correct, and make it better next time.
A comment from Jack. He says, I don't have experience with branding, so I have no cohesive thoughts on what it is. So I'm wondering, do we need to take a step back and just talk about what branding is?
Yeah, so I would say I didn't look up the exact definition, but I'll give you my definition of it. Branding can be overall your look, feel, story, who you are, and your culture. When you look at it, is my brand, I'll give you a description of a part of my personal brand. My personal brand is inspirational, motivational, fun, friendly, and very optimistic. That's who I am and the story I want to tell. Every time I communicate with people, I want to have that tone of voice because that's who I am inside. Your personal brand is also your values and your beliefs. So you're not going to say, hey, I believe that everyone should throw mud on your face every day for a great facial if that's not your thing, or feed your kids candy every day if you're really a healthy person. You want to communicate your personal values and beliefs as part of your brand. So that's staying on brand. The other part of your brand, and we discuss this with book covers, when we create book covers for our authors, we talk about creating a book cover that's on brand for you. And that means if you already have a website or a company or you've started something and the brand colors are blue and red, then we're not going to make your book cover purple and gold because it's not representative of your brand. Everything needs to go together. Think of it like when you see those beautiful pictures on Pinterest of people decorating their house, there's a palette that goes through the whole house. There's something from each room that carries the other room into it. So that's the same thing for your personal brand. The colors that you use on your website would also be the same colors that you'd use for your book, for your Instagram, and all your social media. Does that make sense?
Because people start to see the visual identity. I heard somebody say once that your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not around. Have you ever heard that? So I guess you want them to be saying all those same things.
Right.
I also wondered, as part of your personal brand, I would assume you want to have authority about your expertise. So that's why I'm asking this as a cohesive look to your series and books so that people immediately know it's associated with you and your brand.
And I love you brought up the authority and expertise of it. So part of your brand, especially we're talking like nonfiction authors here, is that you are that expert at that certain thing. Like Gary Vee, he's a great marketer. He is the brand of social media. He is the brand of let's go to garage sales and find deals. He's like how to make entrepreneurs. So he has different nuances of his brand. It doesn't have to be one dimensional because none of us are just one dimensional. You can incorporate multi dimensions of your personality, decide how much personal is going in there. Do you want to show all your personal life or none at all? People want to get to know you. They need to see something of what you're doing and who you are a little bit for your personal brand, a good mixture of that. You can still keep your personal life private. You don't have to share every little thing that's out there. Your personal brand is your personal story. Could be stories from your childhood, stories of writing a book, all the different things that you went through. You got a story, quick little stories of my career path, right? And then a little bit that I had a divorce and moving on and my entrepreneurial journey. So that was part of my personal story. And then I have stories of being a single mom and overcoming divorce and bankruptcy. I've got those types of stories, right? I've got stories of taking care of my mom and dad for the last years of their life. So you have different dimensions of your personal story. And then one of the keys is how can you relate those stories into your business? I could talk about the stories of taking care of my mom and dad, and it really made me appreciate things and know that life is short, right? And the next phase of life that I'm in, I want to live it to its fullest. You hit a certain age and you're like, oh, wow. If you can relate your story into the expertise that you're trying to get across, that's the cross pollination of those stories. It's way better if you can tell a story and it has a purpose and a learning moment in it that incorporates what your expertise is.
Janet's asking, with regard to your personal story, what is enough or too much to tell about yourself? How do you know where to draw that line?
You have to draw your own line for that,
Hmm.
right? You have to say where you're comfortable and uncomfortable. And then another great way is to, instead of just, all right, I'm going to take a chance and share it with the universe, maybe send it to a couple friends. What do you think about this? Is this too much? Is it not enough? Would you want to know more? It's what we do with books. You send it to beta readers. So why not send it to a few people that you can get their opinion on it before you go shoving everything out to the universe and then feel a little bit more confident would be my advice.
I see that Debbie Sarlus has joined us, and her branding story is incredible. Growing up, having trouble with literacy and not being able to read, to now becoming a best selling published author. There's a great story there about understanding those challenges and rising to the occasion and letting other kids know that they can do it too. Kids and adults, right?
So
Those
think
kinds of
of
things
that.
are just so powerful.
If she told bits and pieces of that story in an email sequence, in a social media post sequence, right?
Mhm.
In a video sequence of her story that she could send out, that people would be like, oh, wow, I wonder what happened next to her. So people-
Embrace the challenges, embrace the
Mhm.
story and the triumphs that came from it. Sometimes our own narrative in our brain may lean
Mhm.
towards the negative, but we're reclaiming that narrative, making it feed into a story that we want to portray as our brand. I'm not saying be false,
Mhm.
but we can get down on ourselves. I failed at this, I failed at that. My first business went bankrupt. Those kinds of things don't have to be all negatives. They can be the things that helped you learn and grow into who you are. If they're portrayed
Right.
correctly, I think it can make a big difference.
Yeah. And if you always look at what did I learn, it gives you self reflection. Okay, this didn't go well. What did I learn from this that I can share with someone else? And really, it's about getting your readers to know who you are and
Mm.
start to be having a relationship with you and other people starting getting more followers and people because they're getting to know you. How
Mm.
many times have you gotten an email or a social media post and you're like, oh, I should forward this to so and they would like this, right?
Mhm.
Or let me even save this for later to send to someone because I want to revisit this. I do that all the time. I think my kids are the number one targets of that. They're so tired of me sending things. This is a great little story. You might get something out of that. That's the point of doing that and being able to share that context. You don't want to always be by my book, right? Or just excerpts of my book. You want to have that story behind the book and the process of everything.
I had another question here from Barbara. She says, when you're doing book readings with young children, what do you suggest telling them as part of your personal brand?
That's an interesting question. I think for there, you'd have to pick something, maybe a childhood story or what inspired you to write your children's book. That's the
Mhm.
advice I would give. Like you're ready to tell them the story and before you read it to them. I just want to tell you what inspired me to write this book when I was a kid. This
Mhm.
happened to me. And I remembered that all these years later, and I knew I wanted to write a story about this. And it took me a long time to do it, but you could write a book even before that. I did it, but you could do it sooner. That type of inspirational thing, but to tell a story of how that book came about and inspire those kids maybe to write their own children's book.
I guess that goes to show that a brand can be slightly modified for the audience that you're talking to.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to. And do we have any fiction book authors here today, April?
Oh, yeah.
Phyllis?
So we have some fantasy writer. We've got some nonfiction folks here as well as children's book authors.
Okay, we've done mostly nonfiction. I just want to touch on fiction a little bit for your personal brand too. So, still the same thing. I would incorporate what inspired you, what events inspired you to write the book, why you wrote the book, a little bit of your backstory. That's all part of your personal brand. And it can't even be, you can even dive deeper of what inspired you for each character. Like
Mhm.
this character reminded me of my high school girlfriend And it was inspired by her and the relationship I had. And you're telling that story. I remember I went to see John Denver in concert years ago. And I love because he was a singer songwriter and he told the story behind each song that he wrote. Oh, this is the song when I first met my wife. This is the song when we broke up. He gave us a little bit of the backstory. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would have had no idea that's where that song came from. So it gives you new insight. I really think that works for the fiction books and the fantasy books that you're writing as well.
It's a way to connect with your audience too,
Mhm.
because once they know the things in your heart or behind the stories that you write, I think they're much more apt to follow you and become a fan versus just have read one book and then move on.
Posting on social media sometimes can seem so daunting. So this gives you a whole nother slew of content that you can make about your backstory and personal brand. I'll jump into social media next and then we'll do websites. You've got to decide where your people are, especially if you're overwhelmed and you're a solopreneur, authorpreneur, and you don't have a team. To keep it simple, and if social media intimidates you a little bit, I would pick one platform that you think your authors are on, right? Nonfiction type business books, I would say LinkedIn would be your best bet. Instagram, I would say for fiction books or nonfiction books there. Facebook tends to have a little bit older audience. So if your audience is a little bit older, I would target more Facebook and LinkedIn, because if you post on one, it'll post on the other automatically. The other thing I'm finding is TikTok. We don't know how long it's going to stay, but they have book talk there. I've been seeing authors go on there and say, hey, this is my book, or they've gotten other people talking about their book on there to buy their book. With book talk, I think that's something to explore if you're an adventurer. And then there's also X. I don't find that as robust for authors as much. We post there for our company. And of course, if you're more advanced, I would say post everywhere. And then how often should you post? I'm of the mindset you should post 3 times a day, but my team used to say 3 to 5 times a week. So if you're just starting out, 3 to 5 times a week is a good way to start. And then as you get more advanced, I would do every day or several times a day. And I'm going to give you a few AI tools. I'm
Oh,
all
yes.
about AI these days. Oasis is a great tool. You can put your book content in there and it will spit out a LinkedIn article, Twitter feeds, a blog post, social media post. It does it all at once. You click what you want, put it in there, and it creates all of these things at one time. It's crazy. So that is really a great way to get, and it can be I always say use it as your first draft partner. It's not going to be perfect, but it does give you tons and tons of ideas and tons of content that you can use. So I would say, again, that's a really easy tool. It's oasis.ai, I believe, and it's free. If you want the advanced, it's like $20 a month to add more things in there.
People need to understand that doesn't mean you have to book time every single day to do social media. You can
Correct.
kind of book an hour or so to do a bunch of things using AI. You can make it much quicker to produce, and then
Hmm.
you can schedule things with a
Yeah.
just a small investment of time. You've got your 3 to 5.
That's what we do. We call it bulk creating. So we'll go into Canva. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Canva, and we'll create, let's say we'll do ask ChatGPT to pull out the top quotes from our book or even Oasis. Give me all the like 50 quotes from my book. And then we'll put them into Canva. Once you create the template, you hit bulk create and it puts the different quotes in each graphic. And then you have 50 graphics with quotes from your book. And then you can use a source called Later. We use Later and it schedules it out. So you can say, I want this, you connect it to your social media, and then you can schedule it for, I want one every day, every other day, however many times you want it.
Denise says, what about having your own YouTube channel? Is that good for branding? I would say absolutely. It's where a lot of people find me and what I do.
YouTube is amazing. Google owns YouTube, right? So it kind of ties in when you have your website with, and then they're finding you on search there, and then it ties into the videos. Absolutely, I think YouTube's amazing, and you should have your videos there. So you can take your videos and drop them into Oasis, and Oasis can transcribe them and turn them into all these smaller pieces of content for you.
Christy says, for social media, would you start a new account? For example, I have an Instagram account already. Should I start a new one just as my author brand or use my current account?
I always say, I prefer having one account. It's just easier to find you. It's not confusing. You already have followers there. Otherwise, you're starting from scratch, asking for people to join. So it's a little bit longer, harder road. We've done it both ways, but I truly believe that it should just be your personal brand, and everything that you create is on your personal Instagram, because you may have another book. You might do a course. You might do swag. So on a totally different thing. So I would house them all to one place, whether that's you make a separate one and start over, or it's your personal, but just have one. Another tip we're using for YouTube is we're doing long form video there and then cutting it into clips.
Yeah, what are you using? I've got Opus Clip I'm using, and it does a good job of generating dozens of short form videos for me.
Yes, we used Opus a lot, and we just switched over to Descript because
Yep.
we found that the quality was a little better. The
Oh,
video
okay.
didn't get as
Yeah.
compressed. We do it also with our podcast. So we'll record our podcast and then move it to Descript, and then Descript does the editing from there. But
Okay.
I love Opus too. So either one, whatever's easier for you to do.
I use Descript for my video editing, and they just recently came out with clips. So I hadn't
Yes.
tried it yet. Maybe I'll do that with this video.
Yeah, and see what
Yeah.
happens with that. So, yeah, those are some other tips, because sometimes it's hard to find the time. And then you're thinking, I got to make all these little short videos. I always love if someone writes questions out. Like I tell my team, instead of just telling me the topic, give me a series of questions, and then I can go down. Because April, I love doing these things with April, because April just asks me more questions. And then it's easy just to answer them. People might be wondering about how I created this character or how I got into what I'm doing for your expertise for a nonfiction book. All right, let's dive into websites. How many of you actually have a website?
I hope everybody does, or at least is ready to do one. I'm forever tweaking mine.
If you need help, we do websites for authors. So first off, I know you're going to put that about you section on there and about your book, and you're going to put a section to buy your book, which most people do. But I also want you to have a section for bulk buying your book, where people can inquire to buy 50, 100, 500, 1,000. Wouldn't it be nice to get an order of 1,000 books or 10,000 books? You can offer discounts. We've done it a couple of ways, where either they can inquire for bulk buying, or you put a form with the quantity that they want and a discount that they get, because you're going to buy them. You're all self-publishing, so you're going to get them at the author wholesale price is what I suggest. So that's really important. Have that where they know they can buy a bunch of books at one time, because they might want to give it to their whole office or for a group, or maybe they're having a party and they want to order 20 books and they can get it from a discount from you. Then the other thing, if any of you are speakers, you should also have a page for your speaking page. And ours are pretty robust. So you want to be able to say the venue that it's at, how about how many people, the location, of course, the date, equipment that they have. Will they have equipment for a slideshow, things like that? So things that are pertinent, so they can just fill out something right there and send it to you to speak right from your website. Another important thing to have.
Yep.
And a
And
lot of
that can
people
also
forget that.
translate for book authors to school visits.
Yeah. Where they can book you right there. You can have a calendar and they can give you the information. I think that's really important to make sure that you have that. So they're booking you for your books and events that you have going on, media that you've done that you can put there. Of course, any blog posts that you're writing should go there, because that helps with the SEO as well.
Jennifer says she has wondering if you do consulting for social media marketing. She has a complicated question and wants to follow up with you.
Yes, we do. We charge $200 an hour for consulting for April's group. She gets
special pricing. Newsletter on the blog or on the website?
Yes, you should have your blog on your website. So the newsletter are things that are happening and coming out, and the blog is like information and educating people. Like the blogs we write about are how to publish your book, how to become a bestseller, tips and tricks in the publishing industry, and why you should have an audiobook, that type of thing for our blogs. And then our newsletter, it informs people about our podcast coming out. It'll put the current blog post, book launches that we're having, places that I'm speaking, things like that on our newsletter. And then people would sign up for your newsletter, and then they would get it in their inbox. Does everyone know the difference between a landing page and a website? A landing page is something you keep scrolling and scrolling down on. Even when you hit a tab on the top, it'll scroll further down on the landing page. It's one page. When you do a 5-page website, it's going to have whole different places that it's going versus all on the same page. That's the difference. And a 5-page website is more robust and has more SEO. This is the thing that I find out about email marketing. Probably 80% of our authors do not have a way to send out mass emails that makes your emails go out automatically. You write the email and it puts everybody's individual name in there and it goes out all at once. I don't know if any of you have that, but you need to have one. You can get MailChimp, Constant Contact. We use Cultivating Sales for ourselves.
And I think some people that are just getting started, they're not asking for email addresses and they're not quite feeling comfortable enough to ask. So can you talk about the importance of building that email list, Melanie?
Yes, it's so important. I've had people who have been taken down on YouTube. I've had people that were taken down on Instagram, and then they lost all their followers, right? It's just gone, vanished, just like that. So you want to have your email list. That will never go away. If you have all those contacts, then you can always communicate with them no matter what the powers that be decide to have you on there or not have you on there. So that's why it's important that you should have your own list and keep growing it. And if you're saying, well, how do I grow my list? One great way is on the website that you're going to have that you have an opt-in on it. So you have something that is a high perceived value that people coming there would want to get, that they were willing to give their name and email for. I know on retail sites, I get it all the time. They're going to give me 10% off, 20% off if I give them my name and email. And then I give it to them and then I opt out afterwards, right? Because you just wanted the discount. But it's important to grow that, right? And then I want to talk about what you should do with your email list, because a lot of you will use it for your book launch and then you never talk to these people again. So you need to have a strategy and a campaign that's going on all the time. I call it a campaign. It's really like a conversation. So you talked about the newsletter. So that's one thing you can develop and send to your list on a weekly basis or monthly basis, however often you want to do it. But you need to create campaigns. And I love using ChatGPT for this as well. You can say, hey, I want to write an email campaign to the people that I have. This is my book. This is my personal story. Give me some topics that I should write my emails about. And they can give you a bunch of topics and you can pick the ones that you like. And then say, okay, I like these top 10 topics. Now, can you create an email series of 3 emails to go with each of those? It's going to give you your own first draft to give you some ideas and go from there and add content and change it and edit it. But you should ideally be communicating with your list at least once a week, that you're sending them an email and giving them some kind of information.
And going back to the lead magnet, that should also tie into your brand. Like it should reinforce your brand and attract people. I've heard people say it's attraction marketing. So it's things that maybe your target audience is struggling with, and you have a solution, something that is also something that you're passionate about.
Right. So let's say we did a pastor's book, right? And so his opt-in was his top 10 favorite scriptures that he uses all the time, right? And you're like, oh, I wonder what those are. So people wanted his favorite list. So it's coming up with something that ties into your book, something that ties into your brand that you're an expertise on, that people would want to get. Really good point, April.
When you're helping to set up a website for your authors, what about SEO? How does that factor in? And how much
Yeah.
time should you put into SEO and even advertising with Google to drive people to your site, things like that?
Yeah. I say hire experts for SEO. You can try and figure it out, but if you're not that kind of person, I would hire someone to do the SEO. We have people on our team, that's all they do. Jen, who's developed websites for years, she's even doing so much publishing, all the SEO stuff. We're getting somebody else to do this stuff. So we have an SEO expert that comes on, and that's what I would say is invest in that. We've tried Google Ads recently. We didn't have great luck with those ads, but I think you have to give it more time and you have to monkey around with ads if you're going to do ads to drive in there. I know a lot of companies, individuals do well with ads, but I think it's just you have to either hire a professional, and it's just like book publishers and editors and different people and coaches. You don't know if they're all the same quality. So it's finding a high quality person who's had really great results that can do it for you.
Jack, he's asking, what is SEO? So search engine optimization means how can you make sure that your site is found when people search for the keywords that are important for you and your book?
Let's talk about that for your personal brand a little bit.
Mm.
So when someone searches your name, what comes up on search? If you all go to an incognito on your computer, you'll see what comes up. You'll notice Amazon is really prolific in SEO. That's what I tell authors if they're considering writing a book that's in someone who's in business. I'm like, you're going to get free SEO from Amazon forever because of your book. And if you have an Amazon author page, they're going to have SEO for that too. It's going to rank. Both of those things are going to rank, and they usually rank on the first page of search for you. Also, Instagram is really high. That also usually comes up on the top list. So does LinkedIn. LinkedIn is usually the first one. So that's why it's really important to have a great LinkedIn profile. Your picture there, have a great title. The banner should say who you are, like what you do. It should be branded with your details under your name. LinkedIn shows up on that first page all the time. That's why it is important to have social media and a website, because that's how people are going to find you and your book.
A book launch is an extension of your brand.
You're launching a product from your brand. Think about like McDonald's is bringing out like McRib sandwiches coming back. So it's a product of McDonald's. McDonald's is the brand and sandwich is the product, same as you are the brand and the book is the product. And if it's new and you don't really have a personal brand, you're really launching both at the same time.
Mhm.
So when you start out, if you don't have a personal brand at all, your book is going to be the cornerstone of that brand. So I would focus on the launch, get all your social media set up, right? And then the first thing that's going to come out is everything about your book and launching your book and some of your backstory on that. That's how I would start the whole thing if you're new.
Trent is reminding us that SEO also includes visibility for assets like your blog, your YouTube
Mhm.
channel, etc. So
Yeah.
for SEO considerations, that's a great idea.
That's
Kelly
why I
says
tell
she's
people to be everywhere. You have the bandwidth, be everywhere. Someone told us they were comparing us to another publisher and they weren't looking at our website. They looked at our Instagram. They said, we looked at the other people's Instagram. We thought it was terrible. We looked at yours and it looked great. So we wanted to contact you. They didn't even look at our website. I told our team that our Instagram is like our new website. It's got to have a lot of content in there.
Melanie, have you found Facebook ads or Instagram ads or boosting your posts to be helpful at all?
Yeah. And I think the right Instagram ads are good. I think the right boost are good. I'm finding that Facebook is doing really good organically on its own. Another trick that has been successful is targeting certain zip codes. If you know your zip codes and just trying that out in that little small area and test that out, that's been rather successful. So I think that's interesting, is targeting little micro niches of audiences and then testing the metrics on that. I was just at a day spa yesterday and I found them on Instagram. They were saying, yeah, we had one influencer, but it didn't really do anything. And then this other influencer who does all local stuff did a video on us and we've been booked solid. And
Wow.
and he even said, yeah, TV doesn't work anymore. And I go, yep, I know TV is dead. The majority of our business has come from that Instagram. And he said, then other Instagrammers, she shared it with them and people were sharing the post.
Yeah. Are you finding threads to be something that people should consider? I feel like it's not quite enough saturation there. I don't know. What do you think?
We only have one member on our team that's really into threads. And I would say that it's not as saturated, but you might have a better chance of getting found because there's not as many people doing it.
Mm.
For us, we're not promoting threads. We're not doing that right now. But
Mm.
I know there's people who are in there that like it. So I guess you just have to decide if that's your audience.
Find out where your target audience is hanging out and
Hmm.
make those the priority. Trent says you can have more than one IG profile for different target audiences, like single parents and YA
Hmm.
audience for books. That is true. You could have multiple. It just ends up meaning double the administration
Yeah.
and having to maintain those things. So if that's okay, or if you're lucky to have a social media manager, then that might
Right.
be an option.
Yeah, and that's what I find. Most of our authors are overwhelmed with launching their book, marketing their book, and knowing their book is now a business that they have to promote. For them to promote on one site is overwhelming. We offer social media at our company where we do social media posting for their book for them. And they're so glad. They're like, oh gosh, one less thing I have to do. So unless you're savvy at it, and then I had about 50 posts that I did, but then I learned. So I know I could just copy and repeat. meet. So it just depends if you have more time than money or money than time, right? If you have more time, then you can figure these things out and make it part of your regular routine. If you don't have the time and you just want someone to take it off your plate and you want to spend your time doing other things, then I would hire somebody.
Would you recommend that there's certain types of video that an author kind of records and puts on their website or on YouTube that can reinforce their branding?
Yeah, I think that's being authentic, number one, be yourself. And it takes practice. Here, I used to do the news, right? When it's just me and that camera and I've got to talk, I get nervous. I don't know why. But when I'm here with all of you, it doesn't bother me at all. I can do this all day, but it's, oh my gosh, I got to do a video all by myself. What are they going to think? What if I mess up? And it's just me and it just makes me nervous. So you just have to get through that fear and just talk to that camera like it's a person. And the secret is, I found, guess what? You can erase it if you don't like it. We forget that. We forget that you can take as many takes as you want. It's great to do video and get used to doing video. If you can do a 10-minute rant, a 5-minute rant, a 3-minute rant, put it into Opus. Opus can make all these different clips about it. It's easier to make clips if you make 3 points in your video or you're saying 3 different things or 5 different things that you're illustrating. So for me, it's easier to do something longer form and then create all those little clips. So I suggest that's easier for you to do it.
And the other thing is, if you've not tried Descript, it is a great editing tool. Once you upload your video, whatever length it is, it will just show you all the words and it gives you the ability to remove all of the extraneous ums and ahs and filler words. It even has AI features to make sure your eyes are always looking straight at the camera. If you happen to look down to check your notes, it fixes that. If you don't like your background, you can put green screen background. You can overdub things. I can record your voice and fix. It's just crazy how easy editing has become. It's not quite as big of an excuse of, hey, technology really has me over a barrel because I can't understand. It's getting really easy. And with all these AI tools coming out, I'm sure it's going to continue to get better and better.
It blows my mind. Every day there's something new. We tried Notebook LM and I'm going to give you a QR code to our book, The Strategic Writing System. I put the strategic writing system in there and it created a podcast about the book. It is, and the podcast is really good. So then you can take
what is the tool that you used?
A Notebook LM. I believe it's a Google tool.
Jack says, what's a great criteria question you can ask yourself to validate if you're being authentic or not?
I think you have to ask yourself a gut question, right? Listen back to it or read it back. And is that really me? Does that sound like me? Have your spouse read it, your best friends read it. You know, when you read a book of someone you actually know or a letter and you're like, this sounds just like them.
What do you suppose people say about you when you're not in the room? I hope that they say that I am generous and I am helpful and that I help make things easier for them and that we have great meetings and that they feel supported. So that's part of the brand that is self-publishing made simple. So what do you want people to feel, or how do you want people to feel about you, and what do you want them to say about you and your book, your services, who you are as a person? And then how can you support that in all of the content that you're creating? Phyllis says, do I record video as horizontal or vertical?
For YouTube, you want horizontal. And for Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, you want vertical.
And if you're going through Descript, you can change it. You can turn it one way or the other way. It will try to do its best of helping you take one recording and allow it to be turned vertical if you've done a horizontal. If you record it horizontal, usually it can squeeze in. Just make sure that you're far enough back. If you're having a vertical recording, it's hard to get that horizontal view.
There's a QR code to get the book. That's the Strategic Writing System. This has tons of content on helping you write your book. It has stuff about branding in there. It has stuff about publishing in there. So it's really, I think you'll get a lot of use out of it. These slides to the left that I use for my own notes, I generated all of these with Gamma. So if you hadn't heard with Gamma, it's a great way to create a quick slideshow in seconds. I created all of these slides. See these slides here?
Yeah.
I put the outline of what I wanted to talk about. And in about 30 seconds, it created all these slides for me. You can edit them, add more slides. You can use AI to add more slides. You can change out all the graphics if you want.
And how do you spell the tool? Gamma?
Yep, GAMA.
I've never heard of Gamma. You're a wealth of information and appreciate that.
I thought that we had already generated it, but it's not really here. It took notes. I'll show you what this does. I don't know if you can see that. So over here, I put the book inside and it gave me, I got like a briefing here, and then it will do a study guide for me. So it's generating FAQs from the book.
And that's all Gamma?
This is Notebook LM.
Ah, I love it. And it's an AI tool.
Notebook.lm.google.com. I think is what it's. If you put Notebook LM and search for it, it'll come up.
Yeah. Okay.
And then let's do generating a study guide. So this is a quick way you could generate a study guide from your book.
That's awesome. Is it free or paid? Kelly's asking.
I think both. They have a free version and then you're limited on how many you can do.
And does it work for fiction?
I would just put it in there. I'm sure it would.
And it's like you said, it's not going to be the final product, but it'll get you maybe 70% there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can adjust and move forward from there.
Yep.
That's great.
It'll create this podcast and it's pretty wild.
That's fantastic. Melanie, we are very glad to have had you here. What can we do to support you in your efforts, and how can people get in touch with you if they're interested in working with you?
Sure. You can go to our website, eliteonlinepublishing.com. Click that QR code. That will put you into our mailing list. You'll get the book and then you'll get our newsletter and content from us. And of course, we're everywhere. We're on YouTube. We have the Elite Publishing Podcast and Elite Expert Insider Podcast. We have a YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. I think I'm going to share my screen. I think it's done. Let's see if this is what I'm thinking it is. This says audio, but I'm hoping it's the podcast. Let's see.
All right. So you want to go viral, huh?
Sounds like it.
You sent us some super interesting stuff about getting viral on social media, and especially about short form video.
Yeah, definitely some stuff to unpack there.
It seems like you're looking to crack the viral code.
Always a hot topic.
And we've got two very different sources to compare and contrast today.
Should be interesting.
First up, we have a YouTube video by this guy, Nathan Johnson. High energy video.
Yeah.
So this is actually he has a company called Clipper, and he started doing long form YouTube videos. And so I put 3 of them in there and it made the podcast from those videos. I thought I saw a strategic rating system in there, and I had done it with my book. It blows your mind because it sounds like they're just real and having this normal conversation. And it's a podcast. You're like, that's exactly what I'd want people to say about my book. So very interesting to do that.
This has been very eye-opening as always, and I'm so glad to have you. We'll have you coming back again soon, I'm sure. I know I'll be doing more with your podcast as well. We'll get together and do something special for that. Let's stay in touch. I highly recommend you join Melanie's mailing list. She shares lots of great information, and grab that freebie. It's a great opportunity for you to get lots of free information on exactly what we've just been talking about.
And you know what? April and I had talked about if you were interested to do a more deep dive and do real time creating things with you, webinar type
workshop,
of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're interested in doing that, it was going to be for a very small price. But if you're interested in doing a workshop, put, I guess, a yes in the comments.
Yeah, it's something we can consider, and maybe we'll put it out there. So we've got a few people saying yes. What I always love about those kinds of sessions is you can run them a little bit longer, but everybody leaves with something having already been created.
Yes.
I've got a lot of yeses here. So I think we're on to something with branding workshop.
Perfect.
So let's follow up and we'll get that into the newsletter from both sides. Thank you all, and thank you for joining me. Check out the upcoming events. We've got lots of new things and lots of marketing activities for these Marketing Monday sessions. So keep coming back. Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
To be here.